Hi, everyone. I'm Gold Derby News and Futures editor Ray Richmond, and I'm here today with Joaquin Elizondo, who served as an editor on the six-part Netflix biographical crime drama Griselda, starring Sofia Vergara in her first dramatic role. It tells the story of the notorious Colombian drug queenpin, Griselda Blanco. So, Joaquin, before we dive into your work on Griselda, talk for a moment about how you wound up as a Hollywood editor. I'm not sure any kid thinks, I really want to edit other people's projects when I grow up. Yet here you are. What's that journey been like?
Well, it's been a long journey, and it started in local news in San Diego many years ago. And but I always wanted to work in film and narrative projects, right? Since I was in high school, and then I actually studied film in at the University of Michigan. But when I got back to San Diego, which is where I'm from, I just didn't know, how people got to work, on a movie. I mean, I saw the credits, right? But I just like, how do you get there? So I just spent many years working on different types of projects, from news to documentaries, sports, talk shows. And then eventually, when I got to LA, after having spent some time in New York, I finally just decided to go for it. Like this was my dream, my goal. And after having been an editor for say 15 years, I took a step back, as they say, and became an assistant editor on low budget indie features. And so I started kind of revamping my resume, meeting more like the filmmakers in LA, and I started working on week here, week there on films and on scripted TV shows until eventually I made my way to Narcos Mexico, which was my big break.
But you started in local news. That's really interesting. Boy, that's not what I thought you were going to say. That isn't the typical route into this business. I guess there isn't a typical route, is there?
No, no, that's the thing. And everyone has their own story, own journey. And but you know what? The things that I learned, say working in local news, I still apply them to my current job, right? I mean, like talk about like being handling pressure. When you're delivering, a story for the 6 p.m. newscast. I don't know how many times I would just run down the hallway with my tape, to try to meet that deadline. So, I'm good with pressure.
I want to see that movie where you're running down the hall with your tape, just as the anchor is about to start reading.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
so you worked. So I guess Griselda was kind of your first dream job. You worked on episodes 1, 3, and 5 of the limited series, editing, and you also didn't you also worked on Narcos Mexico. How different were your marching orders for each of those shows?
Well, you know what? Yeah, Narcos Mexico that was my first dream project. I gotta say, when I landed that, and I started there as an assistant editor and got bumped up to an editor, thanks to again a lot of my mentors, good friends of mine who supported me, and it was very different in the sense that when we got to Griselda, we knew that the initial conversations were, we do not want to make another Narcos Mexico, right? This is a whole new world. We're following, say now, one person, her story. In this case, Griselda Blanco, played by Sofia Vergara. And as opposed to Narcos Mexico, where it's like you have this whole, like, how many cartels, right? You're following throughout Mexico. So this was more, I think, I would say, more intimate in the sense that we really wanted to stick with the Griselda Blanco character, and also just have a different style than say that we had in from Narcos Mexico.
What did you know about Griselda Blanco, Joaquin, before you signed on to the series as part of the team? Had you read up on her?
I did know about Griselda Blanco, and I knew a little bit about the late '70s, early '80s kind of drug wars there in Miami. I learned a lot about this through the documentary Cocaine Cowboys, actually.
Mhm.
And so, yes, when I heard, when I was working on Narcos Mexico, and they were saying around the office that Sofia Vergara was going to play Griselda Blanco, I mean, right away I was like, I mean, like I would. This is something I got to do because I was familiar with the real Griselda Blanco, and also knowing that Sofia Vergara was more known for her role on Modern Family. I'm like, this is great. Like, I want to be a part of this.
Her really first dramatic role. You talked about before about being hired on Narcos Mexico for your bilingual skills, right? And I know part of the experience of Griselda was the constant shift between English and Spanish. Talk maybe a little bit, Joaquin, about the continuity challenge that may have posed.
Well, for me, I mean, obviously, I'm fluent in Spanish, and so that was, never really an issue for me. I think, honestly, though, I mean, I grew up in Mexico, and so obviously Colombian the slang or whatnot, that's a little different, obviously, than when we speak it in
It's not an
Mexico.
exact same language, is it?
It's not the exact same thing. And sometimes I would have to reach out to our director, Andy Baez, and say, what does this mean? I just want to confirm. I mean, like I figured, I thought I knew what it meant, but maybe it was something else, right? Especially with the slang. And so, and it's also different rhythms, say English and Spanish. I think that is just, you also it affects your maybe pacing in a way in the edit, because it's a different cadence. I think maybe sometimes Spanish could be maybe a little bit more faster, and whatnot. And so, at least to my ears, right? And so, yeah, definitely that you kind of had to focus on the pacing a little bit, maybe as it related to, say, how the language that was being spoken, right? But no, it was great. And Narcos Mexico was great because, some of the editors did not know Spanish. And so me as an assistant, I was able to really be in the cutting rooms, right? And guide them as far as what lines were included and what not. So that was great access to me, say, to sit in with editors.
I should have taken Spanish in school. Instead, I took French. And of course, it's completely no use to me here in Los Angeles.
Well, you can pick it up easily there around town, right?
No, how closely, Joaquin, did you work with the Griselda director, Andy Bice, in cutting your episodes? Was he there with you at the Avid and all that?
No, I mean, Andy. Well, this process took a year. I think it was about 6 months of production, and then 6 months, and then we dedicated another 6 months just to post, to editing. During production, Andy was not in the cutting room, but he wanted to see us to send him scenes literally every day, and so I think every evening I would send him a sequence of scenes or a scene, and he would give me notes that night or maybe the next morning. And so I would be doing notes already and also getting new scenes, right, the following day, right? So he just really wanted to be on top of it and see what he was shooting and see if he missed something, needed to get something else. So in that regard, yes, he was very hands-on as he was reviewing scenes pretty much almost every day. And then, of course, then we were working remotely for the first 6 months, and then the second half we got to go into the office with Andy, which I truly loved.
Yeah, oh, that's right. So it was remote partly, and then in person partly. I guess it's probably like that on most projects, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think that's very common now, that this hybrid way of working, say that you just kind of go into the office when maybe the producers, directors want to work with you, which I totally love. But I think, honestly, just being in the office, and in this case with Andy, he said he has such great energy. It's just a pleasure being around him. But you really see those reactions, right? As you're watching scenes or watching out an episode, you really see not only from him, but also, Eric Newman, how they're reacting to certain scenes. I just prefer to see that just being there in the room versus, say, maybe
Absolutely.
on a computer screen.
What was the shared objective as editors here? Because I know there were obviously several. I imagine it was to highlight Sofia Vergara's dynamic work as much as possible, giving her all the space she needed to shine. I mean, every episode, opens with on her and closes on her. It really is such a tour de force for her. So that I imagine that was somewhat your marching orders, where as editors, make sure she's front and center.
Oh, absolutely. No, that was certainly, from the get-go, uh, knew that that was our priority, right? It was our focus, really, um, really having her stand out. And I think, no, she definitely did. I mean, she killed it. Um, and yeah, I mean, that was, again, seeing back and forth going with Andy, like again, daily with him reviewing scenes and seeing those performances. Was just really helpful, him, and also just simply having that time. I mean, again, we cut this for about a year, so we had a ton of time. This was more like it felt more like a feature film than say like a scripted TV show. It was just Andy directing all 6 episodes, so it was really his vision, and again, just had the luxury of having so much time, which was great. We tried so many things. We were able to experiment and just nail it.
I was going to say that a year, that I mean, that's a huge luxury, but also just a huge time investment. Is that common for a project like this, where you're actually working in post for a year? That's mass. I mean, I imagine part of that maybe had to be because of what strikes and stuff, that it took longer.
No, no, no. This was before the strikes, and so well, I mean, uh, for me, my experience always has been we've had a lot of time to work on, say, on Narcos Mexico and on Griselda. I think this is just what you get on an Eric Newman show, and so yeah, I don't. Maybe it's not as common. It's definitely Griselda has been the longest I've worked on a show, and then Narcos Mexico was probably around 9 months. You know, but yeah, it's with that amount of time, you just are able to just try so many things, and especially with episode 1, we were able to just, I mean, again, explore and experiment so much and so much until we just, it felt right. Pretty much didn't just tell you.
When you
pencils
say
down.
experiment, could you give an example of that, Joaquin? Like, what kinds of things can you do as an editor that will stand out in the? Because I know that a lot of your job is sort of to be invisible and simply to make things seamless rather than to stand out. You don't want to say, wow, that was a good edit. Although sometimes you do. Sometimes you do watch it and say, wow, that was a great cut. They really nailed that edit. But were there specific things you did experimentally that you're proud of?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for especially the first episode, you're kind of setting, well, you are setting the tone, for the series. And, um, we were just really switching around a lot of scenes. We unfortunately had to lose, certain scenes, right? So we're exploring from everything from again, music, pacing, and then sometimes and that's the thing with Andy, right? So kind of, all right, just push it, like, give me more, just go, dial it up. And so sometimes I would just dial it way too much, right? And say, but it's like, all right, you just pull it back. But there's so many things that we tried. I mean, that until I think eventually it's like it's just a feeling that you get where it really, you feel in your gut. It's like, all right, I think this is it. This is where it feels right. But I mean, we tried from different beginning to the episode, different ending, and I mean, just moving things around until again it just feels right.
Well, I have to. One thing I would say about the series, Joaquin, I mean, besides Sofia's spectacular performance, it really is very sharply edited. You deserve a lot of credit for that. There doesn't feel like there's any excess baggage here. It honestly looks and feels more like and I know you said that you kind of were working on it like it was a movie, a 6-hour movie, but a movie nonetheless. Was that by design to make it kind of more feature-ish?
Well, I think the fact that, well, yes, I think yes. Initially, I think that was certainly, uh, I would say that what Andy was feeling from the get go, with his, it just choice of say Lance's camera work, and the way he was shooting scenes. There were more, I guess, cinematic, if you want to call it, right? I mean, really sitting, a lot of using oneers, sitting with characters, capturing those performances. And so that came out. So yes, that's the thing about, like, then in the with those the way he shot it, it's like, all right, finding that the right pacing for that, right, and also knowing where to, step on the gas, when to hit the brakes, and giving it just the right feeling. I really think it's just a feeling that, yeah, again, you just and you guide it by, again, camera movement, the performances, the music. So many things have to come together, and then you just kind of find the right pacing where it feels just balanced.
Was there anything you really went to bat for, that they wanted to cut or that you wanted to keep in? Any scene that was like, oh God, we can't lose that. Was there any situation like that?
Well, I mean, like, definitely in yeah, like, for example, in episode one, I think there might have been a scene that I pitched, say, to keep or to put it back. It was they put it back, and unfortunately did not survive. But that's part of the process, right? And that's part of the collaboration. I mean, we're all trying things. We're all pitching ideas. And so, in the end, again, yeah, it's just we're serving the director, in this case, Andy, and but he's, again, very welcoming with the fact that he really wants you to just kind of go out there and hit a home run. I mean, like, swing for the fences, and it's having that liberty, which is awesome, and also having just that relationship with Andy, because I had to work with him on Narcos Mexico, and there's I guess it takes a bit of the pressure off, right? I feel more comfortable, I guess, maybe just throwing stuff out there, right? Again, swinging for those fences. But I guess from that, you already have a relationship that's been established with a director, which really helps out.
How do you collaborate pretty closely, Joaquin, with the music and sound teams and the visual effects people?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And in this case, we in general had a great team. That was one of the things from the get-go that also made it very exciting to work on this project, knowing who's going to be involved, especially music. I was a big fan of Carlos Rafael Rivera's work, but him and his music editor Eduardo Jaramillo, just great to work with. It made the process super, super easy. We got along really well, and I mean, again, it was just a pleasure working with them, and then also with the VFX supervisor Andrew Sepperly, who I had, worked with from Narcos Mexico, is a very, very dear friend. Again, it was just making this show with your friends. Which has also made it just an amazing experience, right? It's like having worked with this team before, most of them, but also meeting new people, say like Carlos and Eduardo, who were just great to work with, and it just made the process so smooth. And again, just throwing out ideas and collaborating with everyone was just awesome.
Do you ever wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night thinking, "Oh my God, how did I miss that? I need to go and edit that thing out"? I mean, when you step away from your machine, do you ever have regrets, or is it ever a situation where it stays with you and you're thinking about it too much and it takes over your life and you need to?
Yeah, no, I think that's the thing with these projects, right? It's like with anything I work on, it's your life for X amount of months, or in this case,
for a year. When it's a year, how do you
Yeah.
ever even put that down?
Yeah, no, and actually, I got married the same year I was working on Griselda. It was a very hectic time. Also planning a wedding.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's like, I go to bed. I go thinking about, like, what did I do, or should I try this or whatnot? And then you wake up in the morning. That's the first thing that's in your mind, the things that you want to try out. But I love this stuff. I love doing it, but also, again, knowing, it's very different knowing that you have the time to explore, which again might not be as common, say, on a TV show, but here it was like you just felt that it was like, all right, I'm gonna just have time to just try different things, which I guess took the stress out of it.
I hope you didn't sit down with your new wife and decide, no, honey, we're going to edit the wedding video together.
Oh, I said, I'm not doing it. Yeah. Of course, they look at me right away. You're doing it, right? Like, no.
I think we're actually going to leave things there. All 6 episodes of Griselda are available to stream over Hulu. Joaquin Elizondo, best of luck to you this Emmy season. And thanks for joining us at Gold Derby today.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.